Welcome to Corks Conversation with Jennifer Herrera.
Jennifer Herrera is here to talk with us about, amongst other things, her debut novel, The Hunter. Look at this gorgeous cover, Christie. Isn't this?
So pretty.
Yes, it
Isn't
has
it?
sort of like a burning leaf on the front of it. It's just, but it's all black with that. It's very
Yeah,
cool
it's a
looking.
stunning, stunning cover. I love cover art. I think it's actually an art. This
Agreed.
novel, this debut of Jennifer's, is atmospheric and beautifully written suspense novel that follows a former detective as she investigates three mysterious drownings in a small Ohio town, only to come up against generations of secrets, including her own. It is perfect for fans of shows like Mayor of Easttown, which is one of my favorites with Kate Winslet. And
love
anybody
Kate
who
Winslet.
I do too, and I love the Mayor of Easttown. I think that's just a fantastic, and I think it's a great comparison.
Oh,
And
thank you.
and readers who like Louise Penny or Tana French, two of my other favorites, will really hook well into this wonderful novel, The Hunter. It is a haunting look at the search for truth, which often leads back to the most unlikely of places.
Yes, her book is really a page turner. I actually read it on Kindle a while back and it stuck with me a little bit, but it was one of those, where I'm up all night. Thank goodness it was on Kindle, so I didn't have to have the lights on. Anyway, so Jennifer, it's great to have you here with us today.
It's great to be here, and thank you for all the nice things you said about my book. All of those things are things I wanted people to say. Also, the cover. I think covers are very important.
You know what?
Yes.
I agree, and we'll talk to you later in the conversation about your history in the industry. But I do think cover art is truly art, and I think it says a lot about the book. And I'm sure you'll tell us how much it contributes to sales. But I just think this is so beautiful.
We
Yep.
can thank Tal Goretsky at Penguin Random House. He did a phenomenal job. I think it's just like the black background with the colors in particular, I think are just so fresh. And in fact, when we were looking at covers, they wanted some comparisons, like what covers I liked. And one of the
Oh.
covers I gave them was a Louise Penny book.
Yeah,
Oh, wow. Yeah, there you go.
I
And so they used a lot of the colors from that.
Yeah, I don't know anything about the science behind the art of this, but it's so interesting to have the yellow and then the burning leaf. But then this blue wouldn't be a color that I would have thought of, but I just think
No.
it just jumps out.
Agreed, agreed. That's where what I think like makes it the blue.
Yeah, I do
And you know
too.
what else jumped out at me? On the very top, it says vivid characters and rich settings, a voicey and compelling debut by Karin Slaughter of all people.
I
just
know.
Jennifer,
love
did
Karin
you
Slaughter.
just lose it when you
I
got?
lost it.
Yeah.
I lost it. Well, because we sent it. So I don't know if you know much about how like you get blurbs on a cover. Sometimes you can do it if people are your friends. You just like email them, hey, Karen, say something nice about my book. Karen Slaughter and I do not know each other in real life.
Okay, I was going to say, you're friends with her.
Wouldn't that be nice?
I have met her once, and she
Have
is.
you?
I have, and Christy and I have seen her at Thriller Fest, and she's abjectly one of the most humorous people I've ever
Oh my God.
encountered
of
in my
course she
life. But
is.
I did get a chance to say hello to her at Thriller Fest once, but I do not know her. And I would love to. I'm sure we all three of us would.
Yeah, all three of us.
Yeah,
She's
what a
so
blurb.
incredibly nice and kind. And it was like one of those things where, we put together a dream list of blurbers, and obviously she was high on the list. And then my agent was like, oh, let me just email her agent and send her the book. But Karen's agent like vets all of the blurb requests. So Karen's agent read my book first and loved it, and then passed it on to
Oh
Karen.
my gosh.
Oh, I
And
just
then
got
Karen
chills.
read it and loved it.
So that's like a double layer.
It was a double layer. I didn't think it's just so hard to get to these people,
Yeah.
which I get.
Yeah.
But I thought it was so generous of her that she would
Yeah.
take the time to read a book from a debut author. And I think that's like I will buy every single book she ever writes from now until like the end of time. Because it's like it's a hard thing because it's a big request to like
It
read
is.
read a book. I know it doesn't sound like a big request, but it is a big
No,
request.
it is, because
you're
they're
like that
busy
big of an author.
people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they have to read all their friends' books.
Yeah, think of the stack of, like, as you say, the people that she already wants to support in the industry. Not to mention that
Yes.
every minute you're not writing is time away from your career, right? And
Yeah.
that's amazing, and such a generous blurb too. I mean, wow.
And I like it. She mentioned the characters, which,
Yeah.
they're really rich characters. She has really good characters in her books
It
too.
does. It does.
I'm like waiting, now they have a new series. Did you see
Are you guys
I've been
watching?
watching it.
I am
Yes.
too.
I know. I haven't recorded. Like, it came out, I think last night I was out. Whatever, must have been the
It
night.
was Christie's birthday last night. We have to say, Jenny. So everyone, Jenny and I are drinking a little wine.
We
Cheers to that.
Cheers.
But Christy is being good and having tea because it's post birthday for her. So cheers, everyone.
Peppermint tea. Yeah, but back to Jennifer. She's
Yeah,
as,
but let's talk about Jennifer.
But Karin likes my book, so
Right,
Yeah,
so it's all
there
good.
you go.
So, I live in a very small town.
how big
it
is
was-
your town?
20,000.
20,000.
Yeah.
Can I tell you
That's
where I grew
pretty
up?
big.
Yeah. How small is yours?
1,300.
Oh, I love it. You're like, that's a metropolis, and it is in South Dakota where I live. We're the fifth biggest city.
I was going to say 20,000 to me
Yeah.
still seems like it's big.
It is in South Dakota, but when I talk to most people, they're like, oh, like Christy's like, seriously?
I've talked to people who are from towns of 200 people.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
And they say, oh, 1,300. That sounds huge.
It
Like
is huge.
200? 200. Can you imagine?
No, I can because around here. So you place the majority of your novel in rural Ohio, where you grew up. And so I would love to know why that spoke to you for your debut novel.
I think that, there's this trope about going home, right? And I love tropes. I think that like this genre especially, deals with a lot of tropes and in a lot of new, fresh ways that shed light on a lot of our experiences and why we like these certain types of stories. I've always loved that going home again trope, because I think in particular, when you have a character who has some big flaws, who has some things that she has to get over, and Lee, the main character's flaws are not due to some sort of substance abuse problem or some sort of like medical condition where her experiences are not to be trusted. She has flaws because she's really, really human. And she's told herself a story about how things went down in her life that may or may not be true. But as, anyone who has a family member who are trying to like recall the same event, like we do this all the time. We have wildly different stories about our experiences because that's one layer that we live our lives. And so if I was going to have Lee fix a lot of her problems, I needed to have her go back to the beginning. And back to the beginning is where she grew up. And for me, it felt very natural that the beginning would be this place in like a small town in Ohio. I am from a small town in Ohio. I know that kind of vibe really well. And when I was a kid, we had come from a slightly bigger town or a city, I guess. And we lived in a trailer park for a while. And then my parents, thinking they were doing something really positive for their kids, had moved us to this small town in rural Ohio where everybody was related. They were all cousins. They were all, it was so wild. They all went to the same church. I remember sort of that moment where I realized like all these people were hanging out like at church together. Because like, not because they were like super churchy, but just because they all did that on Sundays and Wednesdays. It was just like a fact of life. And so, for me, that felt really natural to have a character who is not necessarily from that small town, but who was transplanted in that small town when she was young. And then to have her leave it for a big city and to have all these problems that she couldn't understand sort of how things went wrong with her life. And so she has to go back to the beginning, to that small town, to figure out, okay, where did I begin to start lying to myself about my life? What are the other ways I've lied to myself? And how can I finally tell myself the truth about my own life?
Wow.
Well, it's fascinating.
Copper Falls, is that a real town or did you create Copper Falls?
Well, so this is a funny story. So my great writing friends are from Wisconsin, and there's a place called Copper Falls in Wisconsin. And I just really liked the name. I thought it was really pretty. So I took that name from Wisconsin, from this place my friends know. And then I took the sort of like the vibes, the atmospheric surroundings of Copper Falls from Hocking Hills, Ohio. So I don't know if you guys have been to Hocking Hills, but it's gorgeous. It's full of waterfalls and caves. And these caves are not like the caves in my book, in that they're not very deep. They're called relief caves, and they're almost like big overhangs where you can go in and you can experience the stalactites and the stalagmites, and you have like these gorgeous like shimmering walls from, you know, from the different types of rocks, but you can always kind of see your way out. To me, that wasn't scary enough.
Yeah, it's scary enough.
It's so beautiful. But of course, like, to make it scary for a book, I needed to have very deep caves where you might go in and not come out. And so, but most of that sort of lush atmospheric detail that I think people really connected to came from a real place in Ohio called Hocking Hills, but not necessarily, you know, where I'm from.
Okay. I get the need to go there. I don't.
Oh, it's so beautiful. You should.
Haven't really driven through Ohio, have I? I don't know. I've driven around the country a lot, but I can't remember because I probably didn't. I've flown and stayed in parts of Ohio, but they were just the cities, you know.
I was going to say, Ohio can be an unpleasant drive depending on where you drive through it, because it's so
I might have blacked
flat.
it out or something.
I was going to say, it's like driving through Kansas, where it's just like completely flat for miles and miles. And you kind of like turn your head around and you're like, where is everything?
Yeah,
but I will say, one of my favorite things about Ohio, and this is not something that ended up in the book, not really, is that the part of Ohio where I'm from is so incredibly flat, and there's such little light pollution that when it gets dark out on clear nights, it's like living in a planetarium, because you can see the horizon line all around you, and the stars are just incredible.
That's like if we go out in the Everglades or something down here.
Oh, yeah.
You know, because you're away from the city lights enough that, you know, you can, and it's flat. So
it's really like incredible how beautiful it is, and how like little we interact with that.
Yeah. But that's not where the caves are. Hocking Hills must have some hills or something, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Hocking Hills has hills. But that's something I think about in terms of Ohio. Whenever I complain about Ohio, I feel like I have to say something positive.
Well, I would like the idea of a cave that you can kind of see your way out of, because I do remember going in one of those caves like when I was a little kid. But I remember it enough that I probably was maybe, you know, 5th grade, 6th grade. So I thought it was cool, whatever. And we're down there, and it was one that you went down, I think it was like Tennessee area. And they wanted to show you what it's like when the lights are out. And they flipped the lights out without telling anybody.
Oh, yeah.
And I like, and I ran, I hugged my mom, I thought, next to me. But then the lights came on and I hugged some other lady.
She didn't care. Moms are willing to give anybody.
I know, she was she was like, oh, don't worry, honey, don't worry, I understand. And I was like mortified. Like, obviously I still remember it. So
I was going to say, did you find the caves in this book like extra scary because you had that kind of visceral memory from your childhood?
No, not really. I mean, I did find them scary, but I think it was more because bad stuff was happening. No.
I'm claustrophobic, and caves will do it for me. So that was a really eerie part of the book. I thought, you know, just that level of
and like who goes into them? Like, why? You know, I mean,
like, it's like the beginning of a horror movie. You're like, don't go in the cave. Come on,
do it. Just don't do it.
Cave.
It's always great when you're like turning the pages with one eye closed. Just please stop.
Please don't go in the cave.
No, don't do it.
So anyway. You guys, So Jennifer, do you think that, well, I agree with you. I love the trope of going home and having to figure your stuff out and returning back when you've been avoiding, right? For a lot of things she's avoided. But do you think it's different, a small town versus like a bigger town? I mean, do you think it would be different if she was a Chicago native versus a small town?
That is such a good question. I want to say I do think it would be different, but I don't have a good grasp on why. Have you thought about the answer to this question?
Um, Only because I did debate it a little bit because I read this book back to back to another author that we interviewed, Tracy Clark, and she writes her books in Chicago. And I thought it was so interesting how a small town, it really made your story and made your character. And Tracy bases everything in Chicago, but yet she makes Chicago really small. And I thought, gosh, could it be? Is there something about small towns? Because I think there is. I think small towns are different. I think when you don't have anonymity as an option,
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
it just changes everything. And I feel like in small towns too, people will think, oh, I know everything that's going on. But I actually think small towns are where secrets can be more possible. For, because everyone kind of lets each other be.
Yeah, like there's a conspiracy that can happen in a small town that couldn't necessarily happen in a bigger city. And I think you're right too about the anonymity part, and also about the fact that small towns, especially like this, that are sort of off the beaten path, they don't get like passers through. Right. They don't get people just sort of like stumbling into town, shopping for the day and then leaving. Yeah. It's like if you come to that town, like you're a specimen in a way that you're not in a big city.
Right. It's like I have a very small neighborhood. And if someone drives through that doesn't have a connection to the neighborhood, I mean, a neighbor will often call and comment like, did you see that car? Like, who was that? Because we just... It's such a small, Christie's been here before. It is a small little neighborhood. And it's such a different focal point than you have in a bigger city.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I live in South Philadelphia and I live in a very neighborhoody neighborhood. So a lot of the people, like a lot of my neighbors are cousins, or they have some connection to each other. They all know each other's names for the most part. And you have people, like especially older people, who will like sit on the stoop and like watch. And like they know what's going on. I'll get a phone call if I have a package sitting at my door because the neighbor saw it go and they don't want like somebody to take it. I actually had somebody the other day who I go to the door because somebody's knocking. And there are two guys on there. One of them is trying to steal a package from my doorstep and the other one is trying to stop him. And I thought it was such an interesting world where like I live in a city where like somebody I don't know is going to stop somebody from taking a package off my street, like off my house.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's like it's a neighborhoody feel. It's like a close-knit feel, but you're right, it's an absolute different character than it is in a small town. And I think that's the cool thing about being a writer and being a reader, is that you get to explore the nuances of these places.
Yeah. All right. Well, this has been a great conversation so far. We're midway. Let's take a little drink of our beverages. And Christie's going to ask you what we call the question in the bottle.
If you could choose one chore to get done by magic, what would it be?
I mean, I'm going to say clean my whole house as a chore.
Yeah.
Is clean my whole house a chore? I'm picturing
so.
like Snow White style. Is it Snow White? The one where all the birds and the squirrels come in through the windows and they like dust. Like that, I think would be ideal. Yeah. Just somebody to do the whole house. Yeah. Is that a cheat?
No.
No, because if you say I want it done like on a weekly basis, then it's probably not. But if you're like every speck of dirt all the time, well, then that might be pretty big. That might be a big chore.
Yeah, I feel like once a month for my feathered friends to come in and dust the rafters.
Come down your 3 chimneys and scoot in.
When we moved into this house, there actually was a bat. And it was waiting for us over the doorway. And so we were supposed to get like internet and nobody would come in our house because there's a bat and bats could have rabies. And so we had to call a bat rescue team to come collect the bat.
Team?
They're endangered. Whatever kind of bat it was endangered. So
they come down the flue of the chimneys.
Down the chimneys.
And you were
your
living
face
there
right
with
now.
it, or?
Well, we were moving in. It was move-in day.
Oh, okay.
And nobody could get in the house.
Because I'm like, how long were you living with this bat in your house? The cable guy wouldn't come, but we
I saw
slept
your
fine.
face. You were clearly a mystery reader. You're like, I spot a plot hole, friends. But the bat rescue team said the bats were very good luck.
Oh, good.
Well,
Because
isn't
the bat
that
blessed
lovely?
the house.
That is lovely. I was in a very warm place last week, and I went to a yoga class, and this very lovely young couple next to me came kind of alarmed to the class, and they had just caught a very large spider in their room, and you could tell they were both really bothered by it. They're from DC, and and he was like, it was like. And the yoga teacher, she was asking everybody what, what kind of their status of the day and how you doing. And they were like riddled, from this. And she said, it's good luck. And you could see this guy going, you are out of your mind. It's like your bat that was good luck, blessing your house.
Yeah, that's funny.
It was so funny. I just cracked up.
It's hilarious. You're like, good luck. Yeah. Do you want the spider on your yoga mat?
Yeah.
Not good luck anymore.
I wouldn't like a bat, and I've had a bat in my house, and I'm not a fan, and it was our chimney as well. And
did it give you good luck? Did you feel like that
I did not feel like it. I was pregnant at the time, and I
was
remember,
also pregnant.
And it's a big deal because you don't see their bites because they're so teeny tiny, and so.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's a whole thing, and so we had to trap the bat.
Well, I didn't know all that, so that's good.
Between the two window panes, so they could test the bat. So I had to sit there all day, this poor bat trapped, waiting for the bat keeper to come get it and test it at the university here to make sure I was okay as a pregnant one. So I didn't feel lucky at all. I was kind of pissed off, frankly, at that bat, but I don't know. Okay. So anyway, Christie, what would you have done on your wish list for magic?
Well, my minor thing would be like clean the dishes.
Mm-hmm.
But then I was like, let's go a little broader. Then I'll just be like clean kitchen. I can do that more frequently then. All the time have a clean kitchen, or dishes after every time I dirty them, they're all of a sudden clean.
Yeah.
Because I like to cook, but I just don't like to clean. And I like to eat, so I make a lot of mess. But we might have some bats that could come in, but I don't know. I don't know if I'd have bats cleaning my house, but
not worth it.
Yeah, no, it's not great. I'm very religious about changing my sheets every week.
Oh, that's a good one.
It is my favorite night to sleep. Is that night after and I be honest with you, I have a house cleaner that does do that for me. But if I could pick anything, I would have someone change my sheets every day.
Wow.
I love clean, like just that.
I think the novelty would wear off after.
Oh, no.
Then it wouldn't be like a special.
No, it wouldn't, because I just
I disagree.
It. I do too.
I do like it too.
That sounds so nerdy, doesn't it?
No, it's
no.
nice.
I'm just thinking I really would like clean sheets right now.
I know. I hate changing the sheets. Like I do too. It's
so
a task I hate. It's just so much work, right? It's just our mattress weighs like 3,000 pounds, and you
have to walk around it, and like you have to.
I was gonna say you could just like layer a bunch of sheets and then just take one off.
Oh yeah, like garbage bags.
But probably I don't know.
I love that.
Okay, Christie and I are dying to talk to you about your previous life.
Yes. So you now you're a novelist too, but you were a literary agent. I'm not sure if you still are.
Actually.
Okay.
Are you still doing both?
Yeah. The bio I think is confusing. I'm still doing both.
Oh wow. So that's interesting in itself. Plus, how did you get started being a literary agent, and then what made you decide to go on to writing?
So I was in grad school for philosophy, and I really, really hated it. I don't know what I was thinking. I was thinking they're going to pay me to go to school. I really like learning. This will be great.
Yeah.
And then they like expected things of me that I really just like, I need
That's horrifying.
tell me about it. And I was like, this is awful. I don't want to do this forever. So
to write a what?
And it's just like a very stressful atmosphere. Everybody everybody is stressed out all of the time over things that don't really matter. And you feel like you're in this alternate reality where you're like, why are we so like all upset about nothing?
Right.
So I didn't like the atmosphere. I didn't want to stay, and I needed to figure out something else to do with my life. So I went to a writing conference, and I was playing around with a book, whatever, just as a way to deal with stress. And I read something I wrote out loud, and somebody from the audience came up to me afterwards and said, "Hey, I really loved your writing. I need a ghostwriter. Do you want to do it?" And so from there, I started working as a ghostwriter, and I
really?
loved it. It was so easy and intuitive and fun in a way that I wasn't getting in grad school. And so I dropped everything. I packed up my poor sweet husband from California, and we moved to New York City.
Wow.
And nobody wanted to hire me at first because I was so old. I was
What?
20. I know.
You were old
This
at
is
20.
27. I was 27.
Oh my God.
But like there's this thing where you start off, it's an apprenticeship model. So you start off as an intern, and then you become an assistant, and then you become an editor or an agent. And so think about it. Like you have somebody who's 27 who has like a bunch of degrees, and like you're going to be okay with getting me coffee. Like people
Right.
just don't like, it makes them uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so I had a really hard time getting a job. And then eventually I just cold called Europa Editions that did like My Brilliant Friend. They have some mysteries they've done too. They did The Elegance of the Hedgehog. I just called them and said, "Hey, do you need an intern?" And they said, "Do you need to be paid?" And I was like, "No, it's fine. I've been a grad student. I'm used to working for free." Basically. And so I started there. And then from that internship, I was able to turn that into a job.
Wow.
And since then, I've been working on nonfiction books predominantly. I love doing nonfiction because I get to learn things all the time. I just have like a very heavy appetite for information. And so nonfiction is great because I just get to feed this insatiable side of me. And I love that it doesn't interfere with my fiction writing. I never have to feel like I'm worried that I'm stealing lines from my author or plot devices, or I feel like I'm not able to do my job as an agent because my editor is the same editor I would submit projects to. Like there's no crossover at all. And that has been phenomenal.
Wow.
Yeah, that's good. I was wondering about that because, it does seem like it would be hard or good or bad. I don't know. if you're doing all fiction and, then you decide to write in that same, genre. I'm like,
there are people who do it, but I don't know how they do it.
Paula Mounier is an agent we've talked to, and she's also an author.
Dania Kukafka is an agent and an author.
But I like the idea of different, because honestly, especially in nonfiction, you could learn so much to use in the mystery.
Oh,
so you can use it, but it's not like you're stealing anything,
So what kind of nonfiction books do you agent?
Oh, all over the place. So I have, one of my top selling books right now is a book about autism right now by Devin Price. That has done phenomenally well, in part because TikTok really discovered him as an author, and like his sales have just gone through the roof because he's talking about, neurodivergence in a really new, empowering way. I have another book. I'm looking at my shelves as I'm talking. Another book, it's called What Doesn't Kill Us Makes Us. It's about how we change in the wake of catastrophic events that change our identity, so that we're a different person afterwards than we were before, and how we make sense of our new identities, while making peace with the people we used to be, things like that. So it's all over the place. I have a book over there from called Reclamation by Gail Jessup White. She is a descendant of Thomas Jefferson and Sally Hemings, and works at Jefferson's Monticello as a community engagement officer. And her memoir is about trying to gain legitimacy for both sides of her lineage. Wow. So it's pretty all over the place.
With that, do you get queries with the book completed, or is it like on spec? Like, I want to write this book about this?
And that's another reason why I love nonfiction is I work with proposals, not with full manuscripts. So anytime you sell a fiction book, you have to sell it based on a full manuscript. The only exception is if it's like somebody's second book or their third book, or Karen
like,
Slaughter.
Jeffrey Deaver or something. Karen Slaughter,
Karen Slaughter can probably just say, I would like to write a book.
Can I have a contract? Yeah.
Yes.
With good reason.
Yes, Karen Slaughter, if you're listening, I love you.
So I have two questions that just occurred to me. One, what are your thoughts about TikTok and what it's doing for authors? And two, did you, being in the industry on the other side, did you have some agents that you kind of I really want to work with? And how was that?
So the TikTok question is interesting because I have no idea. I am not a Gen Z. I feel like a lot of people who are Gen Z or maybe have a different personality type, like they're really intuitively great at it. They get it. They love it. I would love to be one of those people. I'm just not there yet. I have hope, but I'm just not there yet. And I think that the neat thing about TikTok is that as authors, you don't have to be there yet because nobody, right? Sure, I'll get comments on this, but it's uncommon that an author is a TikTok author and then they're talking about their book all the time. They're TikTok famous. They're talking about their book and then their book sells really well. What tends to happen is people on TikTok who are already famous for other things talk about your book. And that's when the sales sort of increase. I think there's some sort of lack of trust that happens when you're selling your own wares. Like people don't they're like, please stop being so self-promotional. They don't trust that it's good. Whereas if somebody else is selling your book, they do trust it. And so luckily, I don't think that I have to be on TikTok in the way that, in some worlds I would really like to be. Because I think, maybe someday someone on TikTok will find this book and, make me a huge success. And then the second question, were there agents I really wanted to work with? Yes and no. On the one hand, I know they're really bad agents like that. I am very aware of the like stay clear, red flag agents.
Okay.
And there are them. And if you go into deep rabbit holes, you can find them or, deep into Twitter, it's, you can find them.
Yeah.
But I also, I ended up working with one of my best friends. I know, it's very sweet, actually.
That is incredibly sweet.
Her name is Heather Jackson. And when I had written the book, I didn't know if it was any good. And so I asked her to just read it. I said, we can't work together. We're too close. We're really good friends. I don't want to do this. And she said, okay, I'll just read it. But, just, I could not like it. And I'm going to tell you, I was like, yes, that's the point. I'd rather hear it from you than from anybody else. Like if it's bad, save me the embarrassment of going to my colleagues with this title. So she came back within a day or 2 days. I'd read it all, said, I want to represent you. I said, absolutely not. So we're too good of friends. It's too tough to be in a business relationship with your friends.
Right.
And then we talked for 3 hours. And at the end of 3 hours, she said, nobody will work harder for you. And I knew she was right.
Oh,
and she's been great.
And you've made that work.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's always hard, getting used to the bumps. But if you're really good friends with somebody, you can, talk through the tricky parts of that relationship and make it work. I feel really lucky. And she's right. She's been the absolute best agent. I have never regretted that decision.
Very nice.
All right. Christie has a final question for you.
We asked this of all our authors, and the question is, which of your characters would you like to share a meal with, and what would it be?
I would Eric and Simone. So her husband and daughter. I think that would be nice.
Oh,
yeah.
Just because it's that's the, these are the people that if you're understanding why Lee is the way she is and why she keeps fighting to be a better person, it's because of them. And so I would want to meet them and get to see what is this special spark that she sees in them and why, just to get to appreciate that and to get to bask in it a little bit. And I don't care what eat. I mean, it's, Simona in the book is 4, so it's probably like mac and cheese or something.
It's easy mac, like microwave mac and cheese if you want to be fast.
I was going to say, I have a 3-year-old and I can tell you we eat a lot of food that I never thought I would feed my kids. And here we are.
What's for dinner tonight? Mac and cheese.
Yeah, again. Yes. And they're so happy. They're so happy. It's like a holiday.
I know.
Mm-hmm. That's funny. Yeah.
Okay, so when our listeners want to know more about you, where should they go?
They can go to my website, jenniferherrerabooks.com. And Herrera is spelled Herrera. I'm also on Instagram with the same handle, jenniferherrerabooks.com. And if you can just Google my name with the Hunter, or if you want to go to my agency's website, I'm at the David Black Agency. There's lots of information about me on there as well.
Great.
Wonderful.
Great. Well, we're so glad you could join us. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I can't believe someone else has a bat story that's worse than my bat story.
Hey, I didn't even go into my bat story. I actually have a bat story too.
No, you have a bat story?
Yeah,
is it too late for an addendum?
No, I can tell you real quick. It was my ex's grandmother. Okay. Oh. And she was in her 90s. And she lived upstairs at his parents' house. And we were all there for whatever holiday, I don't know, like brothers and sisters, and everybody was there. And we hear her call down, I think there's a bug on my curtains. And so, because her vision was so bad, she couldn't tell. And they went up there and they're like, okay, Nana, come on out. And then they went and they used like a tennis racket and, like
we're trying. The Great Outdoors. Remember the Great Outdoors?
Yeah, they somehow got it out that way because it was like hanging on the curtain and, just brought it outside. And it was like all this big commotion. But I didn't know about the little tiny bites.
Yeah.
And none of us did at that time. So we were like, okay, it's out of here. We should have probably been a little more careful, like checked over Nana to make sure she hadn't been bit all night or something.
Was Nana okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, she lived for a few more years. She was like 98
bug
or something.
On the curtain. That's some bug.
I know.
Where was this?
Is it in Virginia, like near DC?
Do you get like big bugs, like bat-sized bugs?
No, I think she just couldn't see. She saw that there was something there, but I guess she didn't, and the bats are small and we do have big bugs down here and she lived a long time. She probably could have experienced some big bugs in her life. I don't know, but
like the size of a yoga spider. All right. Well, listen, let's finish up with a cheers to Jennifer and her debut beautiful covered novel, The Hunter.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks for joining us for today's episode.
Subscribe to our podcast on our website, gameofbookspodcast.com, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you liked what you heard, you can give us a 5-star rating or review.
You can also subscribe on YouTube where you can watch and listen.
On gameofbookspodcast.com, you can find all the information about what we talked about on this episode. And you can sign up for our newsletter and enter our fun contests and giveaways.
We also post our stories and links on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Hope to see you there.
I can guarantee you that we had fun today.
And we hope you did too.
Cheers.